Welcome to Fitter Every Day, the show where we deconstruct fitness into bite-sized bits that help make you fitter every day. This is going to be episode 5 of the podcast and episode 1 of video. On this one, we decided because New Year's just happened, everyone wants to start this new fitness thing. They want to get this six-pack. They want to lose this weight. They want to fit into those pants. We decided that we wanted to start addressing those things with how we got into fitness. So today we're going to be joined by Shawn Neutzman. He's my business partner. We have done a bunch of different CrossFit things together. We have run businesses, but we also started as athletes at one point. So he started doing CrossFit in 2012. I started in 2014, and we're still doing it today. So when you first start a new fitness thing, like a lot of you are going to be doing now, how do you keep going right away? And then when you get into it a year, how do you keep going when that's a little bit different? Or when you're in it for 10 years, how do you keep yourself motivated? So this episode is going to be all for how we got started and then giving lessons that we've learned from running gyms and being fit ourselves in trying to be able to continue habits that you're starting. So if you've got a New Year's resolution, this one's great for you. If you don't have a New Year's resolution, congratulations, you're in the right spot. So we'll start by just how did we get into CrossFit itself? And before getting into CrossFit, like how did you get to the point where you wanted to start doing CrossFit in the first place?
Yeah, so I'll talk about my athletic and kind of fitness journey first. So I started, in high school I was a 5-sport athlete. And five sports.
Wait. How are the logistics of doing 5?
It's not like Southeast Polk here. It's like a small school. So it's baseball, basketball, football, track, cross country. So I'm playing 5 sports. Like
you can do cross country and football?
Yeah, that's a story for another time. Anyways, I was always in season. So that's kind of me. Like I was never in the weight room. I didn't have a strength training program when I was in high school.
Actually, and you grew up in what part of Iowa?
Northwest Iowa in Wall Lake. And actually, my training up until basically my senior year was limited to strength training shoes. You remember those shoes with the big platforms and the balls of your feet? I know I'm dating myself a little bit. Yeah,
the Nike ones that have like the disc.
I didn't. So that was even after the strength shoes. They copied the strength shoes. But yeah, we had the platform on the ball of your foot. So then, and they'd have drills like sprinting and bounding and jumping and stuff like that. I just remember doing that stuff my freshman and sophomore year, maybe like in junior high when my dad would go play pickup games and I just do them in the hallways at the school. Like that was the extent of my training until I got to college. And then every leg day was just basketball. And then every day was bench day like most college kids. And
the important stuff.
Yeah, the important stuff. And then, I was doing sports performance training with Acceleration Iowa. So that's kind of what I was doing for my own personal training. And then we added CrossFit to the program. And I remember just getting absolutely destroyed in my first workout. Like I always think about when new people come in, I don't want them to have the experience that I had in my first workout because it was rough. But at the same time, I remember thinking, I'm 26, 27, I'm fit, I'm healthy, I'm relatively young. It's like I should be able to crush this workout. And there's people 10, 15 years older than me, like just blowing me out of the water. And it's like, okay, evidently I'm not as fit as I thought I was. So that's kind of how I got started with CrossFit in my fitness journey. But I know yours is a little bit different. So why don't you share where you come from?
Yeah. So I started, so I was a 4-sport in high school. And that is another thing is I think sort of now one of the tendencies is towards like specialization. And I feel like we're getting away from that a little bit. It feels like people are recognizing that's not great.
I think for a while, like specializing way too early too.
Right. And so I did 4. So it was football, wrestling, track, baseball, and eventually had to drop wrestling because I got injured at the end of my football season, my sophomore and junior year, and Southeast Polk's wrestling program is really, really good. So you're going to be behind a state place winner at pretty much every weight. And so you're injured trying to come back to beat out a state place winner at a sport that's really, really hard. I'm like, this is not worth it. To be JV for half a season is not worth it. So I eventually dropped to 3. But I'd stopped wrestling my junior year, and that's when I had started doing Acceleration Iowa during the winter. So I was doing Acceleration Iowa way when it was just one location out in Urbandale, West Des Moines. And once it branched off to Ankeny, that's when I started with you. So You were a trainer of mine when I was 17, and you were like 63 at that point.
Pretty close, yeah. It was mid-60s.
But it was, so I started doing Acceleration Iowa then, and we, at Southeast Polk, you had a reasonable weight room program, and it was kind of Zelenovich, who has won several state championships now in football, and the baseball and wrestling programs have won several state championships. And all those coaches had kind of just gotten there. And so they were just starting to figure out a weight program. But I was doing cleans and squats and stuff like that. But I was doing them as a relatively uncoached 16-year-old would do. But I ended up being good enough at football to be able to walk on at Iowa State, eventually got a scholarship, and I was at Iowa State for 5 years. In 2014, which was after my last season, I was debating between going to the NFL and not. So I had a couple calls to do a tryout for the NFL, which was the Cardinals and the Falcons called me, and they wanted me to be a fullback. And at that time, like, my knees hurt, my back hurt, my neck hurt, just because that is a really physical position to be. Like, you have to literally run into someone every single play. And my body at that point was like, let's go out on a note where you can still walk.
Yeah.
So I quit doing that. And once I quit doing that, which would have been March of 2014, when Pro Day was, and then between March of 2014 and July maybe, I did nothing. Absolutely nothing. And it was just
probably the longest period you have gone without
exercising at all.
Out, yeah.
Well, I was 240-ish and like a 600-pound back squatter, like 400-pound bench, real powerful football player in March. By the time July rolled around, I was 258 and like a real soft 258. And I had started, because I don't even remember, someone had done CrossFit at CrossFit West Ames, and I don't remember who it was that invited me or that I wanted to go do it, but it was I had seen it on TV, and like I remember watching the swimming muscle up workout on ESPN when the CrossFit Games were on ESPN, when it was sort of like it was just past freak show stage, where like you have some like Jason Khalipa's headbutting a wall trying to do a snatch, like that kind of just past that, where it's sort of respectable, where Froning is winning kind of his titles. And so it's like, oh, that looks like something I could do. And being an arrogant 23-year-old, I was like, I could do that.
Walk in and crush it.
So I went into CrossFit West Ames, and the first workout that I did, or that was there, was rope climbs, pull-ups, and running 400 meters.
It's like perfect for a big guy.
Yeah, great for someone who's really heavy, who's 250-something pounds. Having no idea how to kip, having no idea how to use my legs on a rope climb. So I was doing strict rope climbs and strict pull-ups and running 400 meters. And it was like 3 or 4 rounds of something. It was like 10 pull-ups, 2 rope climbs, and run. I remember getting halfway up the rope on like round 2 or 3 and not being able to complete a rope climb. And like you were saying, like there's 10 people, 10, 15 years. There's like a 45-year-old guy who's like 160 pounds and is just kicking my ass. And I remember getting halfway up the rope, having to literally just drop and like fall down, jump down, and screaming the F-bomb so loud several times in front of a group of strangers because I was so frustrated that I couldn't do this. So like that's how I got into doing it. And then somehow, I think because of my competitiveness, through that experience, I was like, I don't want to be this bad at this thing. And then wanted to, I continued doing that because I was just so sick of like, I was fat. Like,
yeah. And I mean, I'm the same way. That's kind of what motivated me right when I was getting started was I'm a competitive person, but also health is like, it's a huge deal to me. Like I want to be the healthiest, fittest version of myself. And then seeing other people that are fitter than me, like, yeah, I'm competitive. I'm gonna push myself. So that's what kept me motivated probably the first year or so. Also in that time, like the first couple years, I had no strength training background. Like every day is a PR day.
Yeah.
Like I'd never squatted before. Definitely like never snatched or Olympic lift, cleans, anything. Like every day is a PR day. And it's a lot easier to come into the gym when you can see those numbers improving every single day. It's like today I'm getting better.
Yeah, that was not the case for me. My strength numbers were going down. Like substantially
that would
over
make
time.
sense because look at your strength or your sports performance training at a D1 football,
Right.
D1 football program compared to CrossFit.
And the goal is way different.
Yes.
Like the goal at a Division I strength program is get you to be as strong as you can, as fast as you can, as explosive as you can. That's the goal. Like how much power can this body generate? Let's make as much power as we can generate. But with CrossFit, the point, like right away, both of us being competitive, we wanted to do it because it was competitive. Because you could like, oh, I can get better at this. I'm either racing other people in class or I'm racing myself. But like the more you do it, the more you recognize that it's trying to get your body to be as functional as it can for as long as it can. Like to do whatever a body can do, that's what you're trying to do.
Absolutely,
and
yeah.
So with my back squat max, like the most that I've done post football, like give it 2 years out of playing football. I think the most that I've done is like 455, maybe 475. In football, I was 600 pounds.
But think about how much more fit you are now.
Right. And I can get full depth. I can go all the way down, stand all the way up in almost any position. I can do pistols now, which is a single leg squat, which that I had the strength to do before, but I didn't have the mobility to access that range of motion. So like when I first started, the thing that I didn't like about myself was the weight. But the thing that I recognized as I was going is that I wasn't flexible enough. I wasn't capable of doing things that I really wanted to do that I didn't know that I wanted to do at the time. Because your only goal when you're playing football, when you're playing sports, is like, how can I be really, really good at this sport? And all of a sudden there's no more sport. Like, what's the point? Like, what do I need to go into a gym for? And it flips it on its head that the point of this is not, let's just get as strong as we can, let's get as powerful as we can, or let's run the fastest 100-meter dash that we can in track, or throw it as hard as you can. It's like, how can I be as healthy as physically possible? And it took me a little bit to kind of get to that change. So like right away it was competitiveness that kept me in. But as time progressed, it was like, I feel better now
absolutely.
than I did when I was 22.
And I always think, like, if I look 10 years into the future, like, what would I want myself to have spent the last 10 years doing as far as fitness goes? Like, I could be just strict powerlifting, and then I would probably be achy all the time and not very mobile. Or I could do just Olympic lifting and probably be something similar. Or I could just do sprinting and running, and I'd be a lot lighter, but I wouldn't be as strong. And I think about my goals, like, what do I want to be when I'm 48? And basically it all comes down to the same stuff that we work on every day in CrossFit. Like, I'm going to be strong. I'm going to be able to run. I'm going to be able to do, body weight stuff. I'm going to be able to row. Like, that's my goal. I want to be able to move when I'm 48 and keep up with my kids. And if I only focus in one area, like powerlifting or running, that's probably not going to happen.
So when you went to actually change into, like, you were in a kind of a unique position because you were already working at a gym. Like, you were already doing Acceleration Iowa. When you started doing CrossFit, you could have continued doing Acceleration Iowa stuff. What was was there a fear that you had when you were like, should I continue? I should do this thing. Was there something that inhibited you from wanting to start doing it?
Actually, initially I wasn't really excited about CrossFit. I didn't know much about it. And with a background in strength and conditioning and speed training, it's like you hear how bad CrossFit is for athletes and stuff like that. And I wouldn't recommend CrossFit for most, younger athletes, because it's not their goal to just be to work on overall fitness. They have other goals. But for me, the more I got into CrossFit, and I learned so much from teaching CrossFit and from doing just how to move, Olympic lifting, squatting, deadlifting, everything. The more I did it, I started to realize that, it kind of got a bad stigma. And actually, I still like to include sprint training, plyometrics, that kind of stuff in my own training with CrossFit. I know our current members, they hate doing stuff like that, but I figure if you can sprint when you're 50 years old, there's not much you're not going to be able to do, which is why I like to include sprinting and more explosive stuff in our training.
Well, and that also applies specifically, like, I always use the description with sprinting specifically, how there is kind of a little bit of an overlap where I have triplet nieces, and one of them, they're running around right now. You're playing in the backyard, and one of them takes off towards the street. Can you sprint after that kid? Like, at any age, can my mom,
not have to warm up for 20 minutes to do it? Like, just jump and go.
Can you just go from, I need to stop this kid from getting hit by a car? Can I get up and sprint right now? And can I be fast enough to catch a 2-year-old when they're on full go? Like, those things are legitimate reasons why you still want to work out. I think for me, to come back to the question I was asking you, is the thing that inhibited me from wanting to do it was pride before I started. Because when coming from the background that I came from, like, you are a really good athlete. Like, if you're playing a Division I sport, any sport, if you're playing a collegiate sport, Division I, 2, 3,
you're an athlete.
You are a really good athlete. And to be a really good athlete and then get fat, for my version, my statement, I mean, again, I had gained 15 pounds in 3 months. Like,
without working out.
So that was transforming muscle into fat and adding fat. Like, that was really bad. And that, being in that state, I was nervous of being judged when I walked in there, because I always have, and even a little bit still, but it's a different situation, is that you fear someone being like, that's a Division I athlete? Like, you are an athlete? And I mean, at that time, I had graduated with my bachelor's in kinesiology. I was 2 semesters into a 4-semester graduate program in biomedical sciences. I had been a Division I athlete. I had played high school sports for forever. If there's anybody that knows how to structure a workout program that's not a professional already, it was me.
Yeah.
And I still didn't do anything because I was afraid of what people would think of me when I started doing this thing, because I had gotten to a point where I had let myself go, like for just a short time, but like I had let myself go to the point where I was embarrassed about myself.
How did you overcome that? Like, what motivated you to then get into the gym?
I think it was ultimately like seeing that number on the scale and being like, dude,
got to do something.
You got to do something.
It's a slippery slope. Like, and if you don't make an adjustment right away, it's just going to be harder.
And I remember seeing like, we had an Ames Rack and Fit membership, and I was living on the north side of Ames at that point, and we could go, and I just never went.
Yeah.
Like, you pay $25 a month, you put your headphones in, you walk in, scan your little key card, go to the back to do whatever you want to do, maybe do something, maybe not do something.
Some bench press reps and then call it a day.
And then leave. And no one would hold you accountable to it. And so I just didn't go. And I think standing on the scale and seeing 258 was like, ugh, wow. I am closer to 300 than I am 200 right now. Like, substantially closer to 300 than I am 200 right now.
Yeah,
and
so that's got to be motivating then to make a change.
Yeah, and I'm walking around at like 230 right now. So it's not like I'm a tiny person, but like recognizing that I had to do something, and that's what got me in the door. And then the competitiveness kept me going. But at the same time, there are little wins that, like, even someone coming from someone that has as much powerlifting background as I had no endurance, because when you're training for football, it is, if you're doing it right, like, you are doing explosive, pure power, because the sport is go for 6 seconds, stand around for 20. But that 6 seconds is max full effort. Speed, max effort. If you go anything less than full speed, you're going to get your head knocked off. And having the power that I did, I had no endurance to be able to do it. So you have these little wins being like, I can run an 800 meters all the way through. Like, I can do that, and okay, I'm progressing somewhere. I'm improving at something. So that sort of was what kind of kept me going. And then also, like, I liked joking around with the instructor, because in a class, I am much sillier than I am in real life, because it feels like a playground to me. Whether I'm coaching or in a class, I am sillier than I normally am. And I liked joking around with the instructor because, like, you can talk shit with each other. You can be like, he can call me lazy and I can call him an idiot. And, like, you can do that back and forth. And that environment, it exists a lot in a locker room and on a team, but it doesn't really exist. Like, you can't call your coworker an idiot too much. Like, I can say that to you, but there's not a lot of people that you can just, like, in situations, like, if you called you've called your wife an idiot, like,
there'd be repercussions.
There'd be repercussions. You're going to get a karate chop to the neck once she gets a step stool. But, like, the ability then to have that environment where you can be kind of congenial, like, it's okay, cool. Like,
and that's what's going to draw a lot of people in the gym, honestly. Like, you don't get that when you're working out on your own either. Like, you can't just go to the gym and get that.
Which even an introvert like you, like, being around people still makes you want to do it.
Yeah, for sure. Like, I love being in class, and that's what I've taken, little hiatuses from CrossFit before. But that's what always draws me back. Like, I hate working out by myself. I love being in class, being around people, pushing myself next to people. That's what I love the most about CrossFit.
Yeah. And I think that's sort of what it morphed into. Like, after a couple years. And so the continuation, I was at CrossFit West Ames for maybe 6 or so months. And then in the fall of that year, the fall of that year. So I'd been doing CrossFit for maybe five months ish. And then I had talked to Jack and Jeff, who previously owned all 3 of the locations, the CrossFit Acceleration Iowa locations. And I said, is there a spot that I can do AI? And they said, well, there's a spot you can do CrossFit down in Waukee. And I was like, okay. Like, I got sports performance background, bro. I'm not doing it. Yeah. I'm not doing this CrossFit. I'll do it to stay in shape, but I'm not going to coach it. And then it was available. I could do it while still being in grad school because I still had 2 semesters left. And so I went down to CrossFit Waukee and started working at a CrossFit gym 5 months after I started doing CrossFit. And from there, part of the reason why I kept going was because the expression I use a lot of times is never trust a skinny chef, which is like, if you are a person who is trying to, at least the pressure that I feel on myself is, if you're a person that's trying to instruct other people on how to be fit and you're not, that's kind of bad.
Yeah. And the fittest people that I know are almost all CrossFitters, honestly.
Yeah. And so I was like intimidated by people like John Alexander, who was Kelly Alexander, who initially did the programming for all the locations. Her husband was a regionals athlete back in the day.
And you've been doing CrossFit for a couple months.
Yeah, for a couple months.
Coaching him?
And so I'm trying to coach him,
Yeah.
and I have no idea what I'm doing. And Reggie was a regionals athlete back in 1963. And so like those guys were way better than I was. And I was like, how am I supposed to compete with you guys? So it was a little bit of shame for me, like of you have to be the Joneses. Like, don't keep up with the Joneses. Like, you are the Joneses to be kept up with. You have to be that. And there was that, but it sort of all comes back to being like, well, okay, well then 6 months later, I was 10 pounds lighter. I feel better about this. I like doing this. And so like the results kept coming. But at the same time, like you still form relationships with people that like, well, I'm coaching the afternoon classes. I probably should just go to noon because I'm going to see Ryan, or I'm going to see Troy, or I'm going to see whomever, Rich. I'm going to see these guys. I like seeing Rich. And the thing that I do with Rich is I go to the noon class. So I'll go hang out with my friends, and it happens to be working out. And like, that's what sort of in the middle time when I had been doing it for maybe a year, that's sort of the thing that kept me going, on top of being like, all right, well, if you're going to be coaching people in fitness, you better be fit yourself.
Yeah. So what would you say keeps you motivated? So you've been doing it for what, 8 years?
So it's been 2014. So this will be going on 9.
So what keeps you motivated now as opposed to what it was back then?
I think the thing that keeps motivated, what's interesting now, and so for those people that have been doing this for a while, whether it's CrossFit or the same training thing. And I personally think, I mean, we're a little bit biased, but I think something like CrossFit or functional fitness is the best way to go about doing it because you get exposed to so many things. Anything that your body can do.
It's so broad.
Right. Anything your body can do, you should do it. So it's really hard to get bored in those situations. But at the same time, the thing that has flipped, one of the things that's flipped on its head, from a sports performance background, is I got to get as fast as explosive as possible because that is the outcome of the sport. And I don't necessarily want to find things that I'm bad at because that means I have to take time away from trying to be as powerful as I can to work on this other thing. Yep. So if I'm trying to get on the field as a football player and I'm not the fastest person, then I should double down on being the strongest person because I'm already stronger than most other people. So I'm not going to be the starting tailback, but I might be the starting H-back, and I might be able to be on special teams, and I'm going to find the role that my body's got to do. So I'm not going to go back and try and work on the total weakest thing. I got to, Band-Aid those things. Well, with CrossFit, doing it for as long as I have, the thing that keeps me excited now is finding stuff that I'm bad at. And
you'll get exposed pretty quick in CrossFit. Like, it's not hard to find stuff that you're bad at.
And it's really fun. Like now I enjoy, and that has sort of gone out of just the realm of fitness. Like it's recognizing that I might not be the best at some other thing in a professional aspect. So cool, I can improve upon that. So the thing that keeps me going in training now, training is a weird word because that implies that you're like trying to get to a specific goal.
Yep.
Working out.
It's like exercising.
And the thing inside of exercising that I really like is that when you find something that you're bad at, you then have the rest of your life to not be bad at that. So in the open, there comes handstand walking. And I had sort of been able to do that for like 10 feet. Like not a lot, but like 10 feet of handstand walking. And then you see the professional level CrossFitters doing it. Or you see other people in the gym doing it. And you're like, oh, that's a possible thing that humans can do that I'm not that good at. I want to not be bad at that. So I'm going to practice doing this thing. And then you get good at handstand walking. And then you can do that. And then you look around and you see someone being like right now, this next year, one of my fitness things that I want to work on is swimming. I want to be a better swimmer because you watch people who are capable of swimming. Humans can do that.
Like, I can do that.
I want to be able to do that.
Yep.
And so finding things that you're bad at is now really a rejuvenating thing that every once in a while, you get to be a B- in everything. You get to be an A in a couple things. I want to find a C+. I want to find a D-. I want to find an F.
And it's easy to do with CrossFit. I mean, there's so much variety. Like there's so many things that you can work on with CrossFit. So you can find that from swimming to lifting weights to gymnastics to just about anything. And I found I guess I don't know anything that's more rewarding and at the same time humbling than doing CrossFit. Like I think it happens almost on a weekly basis now where I'll go in and I'll think I did really good at a workout. Like I can look at a workout beforehand and I know within like 5% like where I'm going to finish, whether it's time or reps. I've been doing this for 10 years. So I have a pretty good idea of what I'm capable of when I look at a workout. And maybe I do a lot better and I'm feeling just absolutely great about myself. Like I'm stoked and like that'll make me feel better the rest of the day. And then Maddie Maines walks into the gym. And then she'll just absolutely destroy me.
Or Amy or
and then
somebody.
not break a sweat. And it's just like, all right, I just felt awesome about myself. Like it's like I feel good, but I'm not going to get cocky because I know that there's always a bigger fish. There's always somebody that's going to perform better than I do. So I love that it can be rewarding, but at the same time, like it keeps you in your place. Like it'll humble you pretty quick.
Yeah, it's recognizing that you are not as good as you think you are is a very frequent thing. And again, that sounds intimidating to people when you first start. Like one of the things I think that a lot of people, when we talk to people, I don't know if you have this experience when you're at a cocktail party or you're at a wedding or something like that, and you're sitting at the table and go around and say, "Oh, what do you do?" And "Oh, I'm an accountant." "Oh, that's fun. What do you do?" "I'm an attorney." "What do you do?" "I own gyms." And you're like, I mean, I work out. Like that's almost the first thing. I remember talking to Brent Minter, who's a pastor, and he has the similar thing happen where he was on a cruise and they're going around saying what they do, and they'd been talking for 10 minutes and they go, "Oh, so what do you do?" And he goes, "I'm a pastor." And everybody sits up a little straighter and they apologize for the last 10 minutes of conversation they just had. And it feels like we get the same thing where people are like, "Oh, I mean, I work out," and I wish that I could work out or whatever. And
I hear that all the time. I wish I could do that. I wish I could do CrossFit.
And the conversation point of like when you're first getting in, a lot of what that conversation stems around is that people think that they're going to walk in and be bad, and that's going to be bad. Like the fact that they're bad at the new thing is scary, and that
discourages them
from wanting to try it. But the problem is like you're going to be bad at that thing anyway. Like if you're bad, let's say you're like squatting is hard, and like you're going to walk into a class and you're going to feel like everybody's judging you. First off, people are paying substantially less attention to you than you think people are paying attention to you. No one's paying attention. What you're doing. Like they're too busy focusing on trying to get through the workout themselves, no matter how experienced they are. But like if let's say you're bad at squatting and you walk into a class and you go to do squats and it's hard. Great. That is, we have exposed in a relatively neutral condition that squatting is hard. Now let's say that you don't do that and 10 years happens and you fall down you're walking on the park, something like that. Some kid's skateboard comes in front of you. You step on that skateboard, you fall down. Your hips aren't strong enough to do squatting anyway, and you have to somehow get off the ground. Well, you're still bad at squatting. Like now just the environment with which you get exposed to being bad at squatting or not having the strength to do that is much more dangerous than in the area of being in a gym. So first off, the question of I don't want to be bad. I don't want to be found out that I'm not good at this thing. The world's going to show you. Like at some point,
yep. And
the world is going to show you you're bad at this thing.
You might be bad at squatting or picking something up off the floor, but if you wait 10 years to actually do it, you're not going to be any better.
Right.
Like right now is the best time to work on those things.
Yeah. And so there's that where you are being bad. And then I think the other part on top of that is that being bad at something is bad. Like that's sort of an inherent disconnect. And that was a thing that I think struck when I was in football mode and just getting from football mode to CrossFit. And I couldn't do rope climbs and I couldn't do pull-ups and the running for a long distance was really hard. I was embarrassed for myself that I could not do those things.
Well, it's not easy for anybody to ever, I don't want to say the word, I mean, not necessarily fail, but you don't like this to have people watch you fail.
Yeah. But having that experience of being bad in my head, I labeled that failure, to use that term, I labeled that failure as bad. And as I've gotten more into this thing, the more I realize that notion is wrong, is that finding something you're bad at is really good. Is because when you find something that you're bad at, and I'm just excited about it now because I can be, fun things like swimming and, whatever. But if I went to the doctor and I got a full blood panel and found out that my cholesterol was high, I want to know that my cholesterol is high because I can do something about it before I have a heart attack.
Yeah.
That when you go through these things, to be bad is not bad, because to be bad then just identifies the fact that there's something you can get better at. Yep. And that you have the capacity to then get better at it. So I think when people are embarrassed to start because they don't want to be bad at something, that notion of being bad isn't bad. That notion of being bad means you're starting somewhere.
Yeah. And I think, and you're going to see a lot of that. I mean, it's New Year's. So how many New Year's resolutions do you see of, I'm going to get fitter this year or whatever that is? What's your take? Like what advice would you have for people starting now?
I think this is, I don't know if I have Atomic Habits up here. No, I have Atomic Habits. I think it's on loan to my in-laws. I have that one. But one of the things that's in Atomic Habits is talking about process goals and not outcome goals. And that's a thing that a lot of people will struggle with is when they first start working out, they're going to go, I'm going to lose 10 pounds, or I'm going to get a 6-pack, or I'm going to look good in a swimsuit. Like those are all outcome goals. It's a thing that you're working towards. Now, let's say that you succeed. Congratulations. You've now got that 6-pack. You're 39 years old or you're 42 years old. What now? Like, okay,
that's it.
You got your 6-pack. Now what? You have to set another random goal, arbitrary thing that you then have to shoot for later for the rest of your life. From 42 to 95, whenever you kick the bucket, like you have to continue setting these different outcome goals that you're just hoping that you get to, versus a process goal being, I'm going to work out every day, or I'm going to make sure that I get 30 minutes of activity every day, or I'm going to hit my macros, or I'm going to track my food every day. And the process goal that you have is going to be substantially more effective than the outcome goal. So when you're having a New Year's resolution saying, I want to lose 10 pounds, or I'm going to fit into these pair of pants that I had 3 years ago that I haven't been able to fit into. I'm going to fit into those again. That's cool. And that's a progress marker, but that's not a goal. The goal is I'm going to be in the gym 4 to 5 days a week, whatever it is, 3 days, 4 days, 5 days a week. And from there, I'm going to track how I improve these other things. Because eventually, let's say that you want to fit into those jeans. And it's a lot of times women have this happen more than men, is they want to fit into those jeans they have and they start exercising and they like the way they feel when they're stronger. Well, now you have some leg muscles. You might not be able to fit in those jeans with leg muscles, but you might not care because you like the way you look better when you're working out or in this particular way than you did then. And so that outcome goal that you had doesn't matter. So your goal changes, but on the outcome side, but the process of I'm going to get into the gym 5 days a week. I'm going to be moving 30 minutes a day and I'm going to track my food.
I like
those things.
I like that way better. I mean, if you think about it, basically my goal as a coach, I want you to be the healthiest, fittest version of yourself. I want you to be the best version of yourself. And a lot of times that includes being the healthiest, the fittest version. And that includes, working out for the rest of your life in some capacity. So when you talk about, I'm going to work out 4 times or 5 times a week, I like that. Like if you look back, everybody remembers their first CrossFit workout, right? Like you remember what yours is. Do you remember what your 5th is?
Nope.
Do you remember what your 10th is?
Nope.
Doesn't matter. It matters that you showed up for your 5th day. It matters that you showed up for your 10th day. It matters that you showed up for your 100th day. And then by the time it's been a decade, like I'm probably 3,000 workouts in. Like it doesn't matter what I do on a day-to-day basis. It matters that I showed up.
Yeah, and that's the crazy thing. Again, New Year's resolution is a lot of times people promise themselves a bill of goods that's undeliverable. Is that I'm going to lose 30 pounds this month. Like, whoa, that is not.
First of all, yeah, it's a little
that's not feasible. But at the same time, is they sell themselves this bill of goods that's not really doable, and they then fail because they try and do all of these things at one time, versus saying, what can I control? I can't control if I lose weight, especially as people's hormones, whether it's men as they age and testosterone changes, or women as they age, or women just generally, because a lot of the weight loss stuff comes from experimentation with men and not with women. So for women, it's just harder to change their body composition. So if you're saying, I want to lose 10 pounds, you kind of have control of that. You kind of don't. But saying, I can work out 5 days a week, that the silly thing that gets lost in this bill of goods is that time plus consistency is results. End of list. There is no shortcut. There is no other way to get to it. Is time plus consistency is results.
So do you set any New Year's resolutions?
I don't necessarily set any New Year's resolutions. I set different things that I want to focus on in the year. And one, like physically, it's swimming for me this year. Is I want to be able to swim better because I want to be able to do a triathlon. But I also this came about from last summer. There's at the Ankeny pool, one of the Ankeny pools, they have like a water walking thing where they just open the pool from like 10 to 12 a.m. in the summer. And people where walking is hard, like elderly people or people with bad joints, or just people that just want to walk in the water, is they can walk through the lazy river, and it will either help them if they go with the current, or it's kind of a workout to go against the current. Mm-hmm. And they also open the lap swimming pool. So Erin went with her grandma to do the water walking, and I was like, let's go do some lap swimming. And I went to do some lap swimming, and I'm back down in the 25-meter pool. And there's this guy who's like slightly overweight and like 55 years old, just for 45 minutes, just swimming back and forth. And I'm looking at him like, you son of a bitch. Like, that's me finding a thing that I'm bad at and being like, I can improve upon this. If there is a human that can do it, I can do it.
Yep.
So physically, it's swimming. And then the other thing that I want to be able to do is I recognize a bad food habit that I have is I always finish my plate, like no matter what. And that was a thing from when I was growing up is no matter what you put on it, it's going in my mouth.
Tell that to my girls.
Yeah, you are naturally skinny and
they don't eat.
naturally lean, and your children are chickens. They just don't eat. But for me, I always finish my food. Always have been. My nickname when I was growing up was Garbage Gut because I would finish everything. And recognizing that I need to not do that because if I get lazy over the holidays or something like that, or over a 2-week period or on vacation, I'll go from 226 to 239, like real quick. And then I have to bring that back off. So recognizing leave food on your plate.
It's okay.
It's okay. And get better at swimming. So those aren't necessarily goals. It's not like I'm going to have a 6-pack in 5 months, or I'm going to be 220 pounds or whatever. It's like, if I do those two things, if I work on swimming and stay consistent in the gym and I finish my plate, I'm probably going to get a little leaner. But if I don't, I'm improving upon those things. What about your resolutions and
so
what are your thoughts on them?
Initially, I didn't have any. And then the first came around and I'm like, well, what do I want to do this year? So like, you know what? I'm going to read a book every week. So that's what I said. And then I've been through the first 2 days and it's like, I can already tell it's not going to work out. Because I started thinking like, if I'm going to read a book a week, that's going to be what? Probably an hour a day, depending on what it is. It's like, where's that time coming from?
You got 3 kids.
Got 3 kids, got a business, got a wife. You know, I work. It's like, I didn't think it through enough to be like, I can just take an hour out of time with my kids or time with my wife or just not coach an hour and read. So I want to read, but I can already tell I'm going to fail.
Let's flip that to a process goal.
I think a lot of people, they'll probably do the same thing where it's like, I'm going to work out, you know, every day, or I'm going to do this fitness wise. And it's like, okay, but think about like long term, like where's that time coming from? Where are you taking that time from the rest of your life? And I think that's one thing that, you know, when I started thinking about that, it's like, I need to focus on my time management if I'm going to do this. And then I need to make sure that I stay disciplined if I'm going to actually read every day. And I think that can carry over to any New Year's resolution. I think that can carry over to people trying to get into the gym and be fitter this year. Think about time management and discipline are going to be 2 things to stay consistent. So your New Year's resolution might get you in the door. It might get you going, keep you going for a couple of weeks, but it's going to be the discipline that keeps you there year round.
Yeah, and it's a good thing, kind of a good concept to end on is how this will get released. We're recording this the first week of January. It'll get released the second week of January. People will already probably be falling off their New Year's resolutions by the time that between recording and posting.
Absolutely.
And one of the things that happens with that is that there's this motivational fire. They're like, I'm going to do this and whatever, even if it's a process goal, I'm going to work out every day. For you, I'm going to read an hour a day. And all of a sudden you recognize it's not feasible or it's hard or whatever. And that motivation fire comes out. But if the habit exists that I'm going to work out from 5 to 6 a.m. or I'm going to work out after work, or when I put the kids to bed, I'm going to read an hour or whatever, then I have allotted blocked off time that I'm going to do this thing. Continually doing that thing will make it easier to do that thing. And so it's the discipline, like you were mentioning, to continue doing it when you don't have that motivational fire to want to keep going, that you just go, well, it's 4 o'clock, about time to shut down the work, and I go work out. And that's just what I do at 4:30. And even if I don't want to, that's just what I do.
Yeah, that's just what you do. And I think, so the 2 hardest days, I think, for a CrossFitter or for anybody trying to work out in general, number 1 is just stepping into the gym for day 1. Like, especially if you're coming to a CrossFit gym, day 1, you don't know anybody. You don't know what you're doing. You don't know how the class flows. Like, I never really had that experience because I started day 1 as a coach.
I did. It is.
But that's intimidating. That's hard. Especially if you're not like doing it with a friend, you're just walking in. So I hope our current members like keep that in mind. Like when you see someone in there for the first time, like that's hard. And actually, I know for a fact that we have a current member that only stuck around because they had somebody else in the class help them. Mm-hmm. And like as a current member, think about the impact you could have on somebody's life. Like you could be the reason that they stuck with it, and you can be the reason they are fit and healthy now. And all it takes is helping them out on a movement or telling them good job or just introducing yourselves the first day they're in the gym. Like that's huge.
Yeah. And that's, I remember one of the best bits of advice that I got is there's 2 most important things in any conversation. It's the most important, everyone's favorite word is their own name, and the most important conversation that they can have is about themselves. And if you can get those two things when you're in a class, like Clint Bells, and shout out to Clint, he's a guy that comes in the afternoon to Ankeny. He's one of the nicest people and will always introduce himself to a new person. And you can see how much that new person, their guard goes down. Their shoulders drop a little bit. They exhale deeper when Clint comes to introduce himself, because he goes, hey, what's your name? Oh, your name is Steve. Hey, well, welcome. What brings you in? Like, genuinely welcoming conversation. If he does that, that person sticks around. Let's say that person, you mentioned it, like a year from now, that person's lost 20 pounds. They are more confident. Their health is better. Their blood markers are better. Everything is improved. Clint having that conversation and saying,
that 2-minute conversation
could that might be the reason why that person stays in.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So day one is always tough. And I think that the second hardest day for someone trying to get into a routine is the first time it crosses their mind that they can skip a workout, because that's where discipline comes in. And I'll use like morning example, our morning workout, our morning athletes. I don't know if you saw our commitment club for 2022. Did you see the list?
It's all morning people.
Every single person, 4:30, 5:30, 6:30 a.m. And that's just, sure, things pop up and sometimes people plan on going in the afternoon and they can't. But the discipline that it takes to go day in and day out is big. So I'll use morning people as an example. So you set an alarm to work out and you're going, you're motivated, you're going every day. But then that first day, the thought enters your mind, I could just hit the snooze button.
You're sore, you were up late last night.
Come up with an excuse, tell yourself anything you want. That's the most important day to say, nope, not today. I'm going to go in. And you go in and you build that habit where maybe that thought pops in your mind for a month or two, but every time you say no, eventually it goes away. Eventually it's not even an option. And then if you get really good, eventually you don't even set an alarm. And that's how you progress. And that's just building discipline in the gym. And the fun thing is, like, you build discipline in the gym, it's not just going to stay in the gym. It's going to take over the rest of your life. You're going to be disciplined in every area of your life if you're disciplined in the gym.
Well said. All right. Well, that is, I think that's the end of kind of how we got into CrossFit and how you can make a New Year's resolution stick. Like, how can you take an example from 10 years of CrossFit, 10 years of exercise, and apply it to day 1, day 2, day 3. So thank y'all for listening. Thank y'all for watching, for those that are tuning into the YouTube or any clips. So we'll talk to you next week with a couple more fun things. I think we'll have Isaac Ruiz on next week, talk a little bit of different stuff. So thank y'all.